Okay, cool. Let's go. Alrighty, so that's set up. Okay, I am clicking on go live now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our after church tea time. Today, we're going to be sharing our insights into the sermon by Danny on valuing what is of value and not valuing what is valueless. And so, the way to start building your and living your heaven on earth. So, I'm joined by Roxanne today, and we thank you all for joining us. So yeah, I think for me the first thing that stood out, and I think it's something that always stands out in unionism for me, is how much effort and energy it takes to release the illusions. Because we have, I feel like we've just, and certainly for me, I've just gotten to the point where like there's a lot of things that feel or have felt out of alignment. And the deeper I go into my ascension journey and the deeper I go into the teachings of union and into the relationship with the community, it's just realizing that there's so many things that I've learned having been in the world that almost feel like I have to unlearn them and relearn a new way of being and a new way of aligning with life and accepting life and living life. And all of those things feel like that they kind of feel like a lot of unearthing, like a lot of remaking a foundation that I didn't in the past actually think was a shaky foundation until I realized that it was a shaky foundation. So, like, it's just something that always stands out to me that the things that I thought were of value or that were taught to me to be of value are actually quite different to what I truly value when I really look at it. So yeah, and that's my biggest takeaway from today is just how much the journey actually allows us or helps us to remake the things that really make no sense and to start valuing the things that are truly of value to ourselves. So I don't know, how do you feel about that, Roxanne?
Yeah, I really resonate with what you're sharing there, and I feel that too. I think ever since starting the journey, it's been really like this deep purification of releasing the illusion. And sometimes you don't know what is illusion and what is real until you take the journey and you start just being open to learning, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is like with having gurus you have someone that you can look up to, right? Because it would be really hard doing this all on our own. So yeah, it's just important to surrender and let love move through you, even if you don't know what that looks like yet. And trusting that God is always going to give you like exactly what you need in each moment. Like not being upset because there are upsets, but like embracing them. I think that's something that Danny mentioned as well in the sermon really just embracing the journey, embracing what is coming up, and like trusting that those are the blocks that you need to move through to release the illusion. And as long as you're making that choice, like you're going to get there, right? Everybody's on their way to their heaven on earth. As long as you're making that choice and not just making it once, but making it over and over again. I'm sure we all know this as unionists, right? You have to continue to commit to your life of love and, yeah, just be committed to God in every way.
I love that you shared that because I feel like that's quite important is that power of surrender. Because and I feel like it's important for us to actually just exploit a little bit because when you think of the word surrender and the energy behind it, it almost has this feeling or sense of being attached to giving up or in the energy of giving up. And surrender is literally the opposite of giving up. It's literally releasing the attachment to the outcome. It's releasing the attachment to controlling what you think the outcome should be and how you're going to act in order to achieve that outcome. So, and it's not about giving up. It's about letting go of control. And that's been a lesson for me quite, it's probably the longest time that it's been a lesson for me because I've always just grown up knowing that you have to take the action. And the action is on you. There's no outside rescuer and that kind of thing. And I feel like that's really the illusion, is like the sense of needing to be rescued, but also not having the power of the rescue, and yet you don't really need to be rescued. So, it's like it's kind of like that counterintuitive feeling of, well, actually, I actually have power here. But my power doesn't need to be exercised in the form of control. My power needs to be exercised in the form that, well, this is the next logical, most peaceful step to take, and so I'm going to take it. And that doesn't mean I'm going to control the outcome. I'm just doing my part. And me doing my part invites God to do God's part, to meet me where I am, to meet God where God is. So it literally comes back to how powerful that relationship truly is. Because again, if we think about the dynamics of relationships, so they can't actually be one-sided. And you can't sit in the energy of, oh, God is my rescuer, and so I don't have to do anything. It's the complete opposite. You always need to do something. You always need to meet God in a certain space by taking the divine inspired action. And that's been that's been a powerful lesson for me, is that, yeah, there's the rescue isn't the rescue. The rescue is the partnership. And the partnership is what actually makes the relationship work with God. And it literally, if you put it into any other shape or form, it's what makes relationships work with all of us. That we always meet each other where we're at. We meet each other in the space where we need to take the very next most peaceful, most logical step. And we haven't necessarily in the past learned that our next actions are derived from having the next peaceful insight.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I feel like, yeah, what you're showing is like surrender isn't just like not doing anything. And I think a lot of people get very like disappointed or, frustrated and they just say like, I'm just gonna let it all go. But that's not really the idea of this journey. You're actually like an active participant in on your path towards union. And yeah, like God is always going to support you. He's not just going to abandon you. But you do have to make that choice, right? Because it's easy to be distracted. I think this topic also came up and that stood out for me because like you're gonna have invitations to, choose ego. And that's just how it is, right? That's why you have a choice. Like, do you choose to value love and God, or do you choose to value ego? And the world is always going to be there, right? Like it's not going to go away. But you do have to work towards your heaven on earth. And, it's not just going to like fall from the sky. You have to love yourself. You have to actively like participate. God needs you to participate, right? In order for you to arrive to your destination and continue to grow and heal. So, yeah, I think what was really powerful for me today was like that choice. Like, what are you going to choose to value here?
I love that, yeah. And that is so true. And I feel like learning that the choice is powerful and learning that you actually do have a choice. Like we always have a choice. And that choice does carry significant power has been a deep learning. But it's not just, even just as Drake said in his outro on the sermon, it's not a once-off thing. It's literally the consistency of repeatedly choosing love. It's the repetitive choice, the consistency of making that choice over and over again against those distractions, or even, in contrast to those distractions that you were talking about, because there are so many things that draw our attention all the time, and it doesn't make us weak or bad to sometimes realize that actually we have been distracted, and the distractions are easy because the world is loud, and I think that's the thing. Like, we need to be compassionate with ourselves because the world is loud, and the distractions will be loud because we live in the world. We don't live in an isolated space where we are not affected or engaging with life, and so it's easy to fall for the distractions if we don't also cultivate that inner peace, that space that says, I'm actually okay, regardless of what is happening right now, regardless of how much noise there is in the world, I'm actually okay. And that okayness is truly our natural state, but we don't learn that, right? We start to discover that because we start to embark on our healing. We start to unmake the noise. And I have found in my life, the more I healed, and initially, the peace, the quiet, the silence actually felt quite loud. And it was quite unusual that the silence felt loud, because it's kind of like counterintuitive. It's like an oxymoron. How is silence loud? But that's the issue. It's like when you're not accustomed to it, and then you have it. It does feel unusual, but the choice is to allow the unusual to become your new usual, your new normal. It's actually okay to accept that in my heaven on earth, I actually have internal peace, and it's fun. And it helps me to actually pay attention to what's happening, as opposed to being distracted by what's happening. And yeah, and it feels like such a roundabout way, but all of those things stack up into our acceptance of what is actually our natural state. Our natural state before everything was poured into us, and we just accepted it because we didn't know better. Right? And so when you now start to consider that, what does my heaven on earth actually look like? And what does it actually feel like? I feel like part of it is that there's just that natural peace inside your heaven on earth that you don't actually, we just don't get taught as we're growing up. And once we do start learning it, it becomes so much more comfortable, because also then the noise and the distractions, while they're still there, they don't actually draw as much of our attention any longer.
That's really beautiful. Yeah, I completely agree too. Like, I think we all just grew up that chaos, noise, like all of that stuff is normal. And honestly, I think that is still something that I continue to heal through, as I do have a 9 to 5 job and still like part of the world in a sense. But I do notice that when I'm grounded in peace, like feeling peaceful, typically my day goes much better. And when I'm moving through like that inner chaos, like the external always reflects that, right? And so, like, I just moved through a challenge there last week, and it was really about me standing up for myself and having boundaries with ego. And again, it was trying to pull me into fear. And I really yeah, I was able to see my power and how it was really just a test for me to, again, affirm, like, no, I don't want this fear. I choose my heaven on earth. And, I realized that the external doesn't really have that much power over us. Like, love is infinitely more powerful. And so, yeah, I feel like we're just constantly like living it, walking this path. You're going to encounter tests. God is going to test you. And that's something Jeff and Shaleia also talk about in TFAS. And, just because you're choosing love, it doesn't mean that everything's going to unfold perfectly. But eventually you do get there and you do experience more peace and things do get easier, right? And then as you claim deeper love, you go deeper and more challenges come up. So yeah, it's really like safe to walk this path and face, the challenges and the darkness. Like there's nothing to truly be afraid of when you're walking with God, even if it looks like, impossible or if it looks really scary. God already has the plan for you.
I love that. And it's perfect. It's a perfect way to step into one of the other things that Danny shared around looking into those places and reviewing those places in your life that do not feel aligned and finding the blocks. And and a lot of the time, as we learn and as we grow in the teachings of union and as we grow on our ascension journey, we are going to find the blocks, as you said. But the blocks are not actually the problem. The problem is avoiding the healing that is being pointed to through the blocks. And so it's safe, as you said, to find and look at those blocks. It's safe to explore them and unpack them so that we can actually find that next piece of healing and that next piece of joy, because there's always a level of joy after healing something. And and we again, joy is also a natural state. It's always been a natural state. We've just kind of again taken a little bit of a journey away from our joy because yes, as you said, we are in the world. We can't avoid the world. We are part of the system. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to succumb to the pain in the system. And so I feel like that's it. It's important for us as we're talking about it, and especially for me to also just remind myself that the blocks are not a problem. And while we don't need to go and look for them because like, they're gonna crop up as we go along on our journey, but it's also very important not to avoid them because there's always healing in that space. And it's something that Danny spoke to in terms of, where you perceive that something in your life is not quite where you think it should be. And you're allowed to have a desire for things in your life. And I think it's something that came through today's class with Jeff and Shaleia as well, is that it's okay to have those desires. It's okay for those desires to be there because nothing that you desire, unless it's to hurt other people, it's not going. I mean, it's not going to benefit you in any way. So your desires are beneficial. They are the place in which at which your life, where God is also relating to you and saying, my child, you are made for more. You are made for that space. So align yourself to that space. And in order to align yourself to that space, you kind of need to let go of some limiting beliefs, some potential hurts that have been there in your past, some traumas that are keeping you stuck in patterns that actually don't make sense anymore and are not beneficial to your highest good and your highest life. So, it's just such a profound learning journey. And I feel like that's been the biggest thing is that we forget that we're continuously learning. Every little thing is a learning opportunity. And in the past, my friends and I always used to say every day is a school day because it really is. You discovered something new, you learn something new, and if you pay attention, the lesson actually builds up on a previous lesson and it allows you to do more than you did before because you have these things in this toolkit that you built up. And your heaven on earth is not just about things being in place and life being all flowers and roses. It's also about learning how to live in that life. And I don't know that we've always been taught how to live in joy and happiness and peace and love. And so as we go along this journey and we find those blocks and we heal through the blocks, we get closer to knowing how to live in our joy. And that is living closer to our heaven on earth.
Yeah, that's so true, right? Like as you were sharing that, it made me think how like at the beginning, it almost felt foreign to feel peace. And I think you said that earlier too, but like it felt like the piece was like loud in a sense, like it felt very uncomfortable. Same with the joy, right? Same with experiencing these breakthroughs with your twin flame or in your finances. Like these are all new things that you maybe haven't experienced yet in your life, but those are also meant to come true, right? Like it's not all just going to be like upsets and triggers. You're going to experience that divinity in your life. You're going to experience peace. You're going to experience deeper joy. And that's why it's important that you have that foundation so that you can actually receive it, receive all of your good. And it's also important to embrace even the little changes, the little, shifts that are happening, even if it's like a text from your twin flame or if it's, just something very small that seems insignificant, because that is still like leading you to the bigger things. And if you're focusing too much on, well, I don't have this yet, or oh, all I got is that, then you're like creating more of that lack. So it's also important to, yeah, ground into the present and enjoy the journey as well. Because it is meant to be enjoyed, right? Like it is meant to also be joyful. And I hear that a lot in our community. Like even if there are really big upsets, the more you do this work, the less it feels like intense or painful. Like it's like there's almost joy in that as well because you're like working towards even greater abundance and greater peace. And so, yeah, it's really beautiful to walk this journey with God. And yeah, it is like learning, right? You're like in a school and you're learning. It's okay if this is all new.
I agree. I agree. It's absolutely okay that you're learning, and I feel like that's been part of kind of coming back to that space of the lessons don't have to be difficult. Like we've been taught that the lessons have to be hard and they have to be difficult, and there's always a test in one way or another. And sometimes it's not a test. Sometimes it's just God saying to you, okay, we've healed this. Let's just make sure that it's released. It does. There's no need for us to learn it again in the same way. It's kind of like, okay, let's just cement the releasing and let's celebrate that we have released it. And that's something you just spoke to, is that like celebrating those little wins, because actually there's balance. There's balance to life. It's not only hard yards. There are times when actually you get to sit back and go, oh, pat on the back. Well done. You've moved quite a distance. You have overcome something that in the past you might have taken a lot longer to overcome. But now, buddy, you've done well. Like, well done, yeah. And I feel like that's also something that probably contributes to us living in that joy. Because we're actually giving ourselves the credit where the credit is due. Because, because again, as you said, it's not all triggers and upsets. There's actually glimmers and there's joy and there's peace and there's love. But we have to allow all of it in. We can't just focus on the next big upset or the next big block and continuously feel like we have to strive towards something. There are places where we can actually just relax and accept that there's been good here. And that is the balance that we also need to remember as we build our heaven on earth. Because literally, we're going to be living in the balance. We got to be living in the balance. And that's our heaven on earth, right? It's kind of accepting that everything is cyclical. The winds are cyclical, the lessons are cyclical, life is cyclical, and we're always going to go into spaces of deeper truth. But we have to also accept that there was a win here, there was joy here, and appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love that. And it's true. Like there's times where, it's just realizing that, oh, this situation happened in the past. And like I didn't react to it this time. Sometimes that is like the celebration. It's not necessarily like this massive like breakthrough, but that is a big massive breakthrough in a sense, right? But yeah, it's sometimes the journey really is just about like surrendering and relaxing and like asking God, like, okay, like how do you want love to move through me today? Like it can just really be that simple, right? Like you don't always have to be like digging and searching for the next big thing. Um, but yeah, God is always going to guide you to your highest good, and it's safe to just like relax into that and just trust your journey, right? Be surrendered and in the flow.
And I love that you mentioned that because I feel like trust is something that we kind of, and certainly for me, trust has been something that has been a big lesson to learn and come back into. And it's probably not even that I didn't trust. It's that I wasn't trusting or allowing myself to trust myself in certain places. And so coming back into the journey of learning to and accepting that I can trust God here. And because I can trust God here, I can trust myself here. And I can actually just relax in certain places because that's also a thing that's been probably one of the bigger lessons is to allow myself to relax. Because there's always been this energy of constant drive and constant movement and constant getting to the next place. But I feel like that also stopped me from enjoying the journey of life and seeing that there's actually also good here. And I don't believe that there's ever been a promise from God that we're not gonna encounter things that we need to grow through. But there was never also a message that says there wasn't you're never going to be able to relax either, right? So it's kind of like finding that balance again and going, you know what? It's okay. I'm okay. It's okay. And I learned this. I probably learned this ages ago and kind of forgot about it. That it's okay. Some things are just okay. It's okay. Like calm down, we can do this. It's okay. And I feel like that is probably one of the things that contributes to accepting that life is good and life can be good, is that sometimes it's actually okay. Yes, there's a challenge, but it's okay. Yes, there's fun here, and it's okay. And it's just like releasing that anxious energy that takes me out of my peace. Because as you said earlier, that there can be lots of chaos around you, but that doesn't mean that your peace needs to be affected by it and that you leave your peace in order to deal with what is happening around you.
I really love that. And I find it funny how you're saying like it's okay because I feel like the past couple weeks I've had this like inner voice that's just been saying like it's going to be okay. And like I really needed that at times. And it can be as simple as that, right? Like everything is going to be okay and God is in charge. You're never ever walking this journey alone, right? We've got all of each other. Like no one's going to let the other person slip. Like we're all here to help each other. And I think another big thing for me that I've been going deeper with, and I realized like from the moment I started this journey to where I am now, is like letting go of expectations of what think or feel heaven on earth is with my twin flame. And like I came in, I think, with this idea of like who the person was, what it was going to look like and be like. And the more I surrender into just being with God, like things look different. Not really, but in a sense, they just feel different. And it's even better than what I thought it could be. Like the energy of this journey and like of being with God is so much better than what I could have ever imagined. And so I think that's another aspect of like, when you're choosing love, you also have to like surrender what things are going to look like or feel like in your life and letting God like show you how good it can be as well, right?
And that's awesome. And thank you for sharing that because I think it is important. It is important to actually allow ourselves to be surprised by what God actually has in store for us that we may not have been able to envision in our limited view of what good is and what good could be. And I feel like that's also a lesson that, in kind of coming back to what is that heaven on earth? Allow yourself to be surprised because it could actually be so significantly different, but also so significantly better than what you thought it could be. So yeah, I feel like for me, I feel like we've come to a good space for concluding the conversation. I'm not sure how you feel.
Yeah, I'm feeling like very complete here and just very peaceful.
Awesome. So thank you very much for the conversation today. And thank you to everybody for joining us. Also, if you feel it, feel free, please also check our unionism.org page where you can tithe or donate to the Church of Union, or just so that we can continue to bring you this kind of content and share our lessons through the teachings of Union and through the sermons that everybody's sharing with you. And we look forward to seeing all of you again soon for another after church tea time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.